What is up, everyone? Happy Thursday, and also happy Week 7 of the NFL regular season. I'm Kimmi Chex. That dude next to me is Adam Rank, and you are watching NFL Fantasy Bites, where we give you the down low on all the players you need to start, the guys you need to sit, and the guys we guarantee are going to be great and get you over 25-plus fantasy points. Rank, hit them with what else we got coming up in the show.
Well, we're going to have Michael F. Florio joining us here in just a little bit. We're going to do a very special edition of the Hype Train!
Hype Train!
It should be a lot of fun, and Michael F. is going to show us what players are going to continue to build on what we saw last week, and I can't wait to hear about all of that. And I can't wait to get this show started because I'm fired up, Kim.
Fired up Week 7, Thursday. You know, last week, I took home a win in every single one of my fantasy leagues, so I'm still on the high from that, and I need to make sure that I continue this streak so then I can get to the playoffs and then beat you in all the leagues that we play in together. But let's start to get into some of this fantasy knowledge. I wanted to start with you, Adam Rank, on what your fantasy bite of the week is.
Well, I'm going to talk about Travis Kelsey for a moment because he has had at least 10 fantasy points in every game this season, all 6. There's not another tight end who has done that 5 times. And I think it's pretty remarkable because the thing of it is you want consistency from the tight end position. Unless you want to be streaming Ian Thomas this week, I think it's such a safe feeling having Travis Kelsey, like such a security blanket. It's just nice knowing that it's always there. It's like the other night, I'll be honest, I was feeling a little bit down, and I needed a boost. I needed a pick me up, and so I went over and I went to my movies and I watched one of the greatest movies of all time. And of course, I'm talking about San Andreas, starring The Rock. And you know what? And it made me feel good. And that's what Travis Kelsey does. Like, he makes me feel good that every time I look at my lineup, I'm like, well, there's at least a 10 spot right there where a lot of you are like, I hope Irv Smith Jr. is coming through. So thank you so much, Travis Kelsey, and The Rock as well. Appreciate both of you.
Thank you, The Rock, for joining the show as well. You can see it's myself, it's Adam Rank, and Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He's made a cameo this week. Speaking of Travis Kelsey, you know, when we were doing our preseason drafts and we were talking about the tight end position, there was this conversation and this debate. Who is the better tight end in fantasy football? Is it George Kittle or is it Travis Kelsey? And though I love George Kittle, we went to college together, go Hawkeyes, yay. Always will root for George. I think Travis Kelsey is going to continue to be the safest and the best tight end in fantasy football. So no more debate about that. That was your bite, and it's time to get to mine. And I want to move away from the tight end position and instead focus on the quarterback position and talk about Kyler Murray. Now, Kyler Murray is the only player in the NFL to have 21 plus fantasy points in every single game this season. Those numbers are absolutely insane. And it's funny because here I am calling him a quarterback, but he's also gone on to prove that he's officially the goal line back for the Arizona Cardinals. You know, just last week, he only threw for 188 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns, but he also ran one in himself. So with that finish that he had last Sunday, Kyler Murray has the 3rd most fantasy points by a quarterback through 6 weeks in the NFL season in history. He's only behind Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers, and he has a really good matchup this week going against Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks, and which I think is going to be a complete shootout and has the opportunity to be a very high-scoring game. So Kyler Murray, keep on keeping on, the only player in the NFL to have 21-plus fantasy points in every single game. All right, so speaking of Kyler, Adam Rank, I have a question. He's taking on Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. What is your point projection for Kyler Murray this week?
Well, I'm still going to go with Russell Wilson in this one. And I play in a lot of different leagues where the quarterback scoring varies. And I think that in every league that I'm in, because it values throwing the football as much as it does running the football, I think basic scoring, standard or even PPR doesn't matter for quarterbacks. But if you don't change the scoring rules, then it favors the quarterbacks who run far too much. I mean, you cannot sit there and complete 9 passes and have a monster game. That just doesn't, it's not right. So I like Russell Wilson in this one because I think that he's going to have an opportunity. I know the matchup is better for Kyler because, of course, the Seahawks defense has struggled over the course of the season. But Russell's my guy, and I think he's going to have a monster game coming off a bye. 4 touchdowns. I don't think it's outlandish to say that, Kim.
Okay, well, if you are a fantasy fan who had a question like that on who to start, Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson, Adam Rank thinks Russell Wilson. I'm going to go with Kyler, but maybe I'm just biased on this one. But speaking of fan questions, remember, if you ever have any, reach out to us. Tweet us at NFL Fantasy with whatever your question may be. And hopefully you can get on the show and we could answer and give some advice to lead you to a fantasy win. But let's get to some questions right now because it's week 7. A lot of people have questions about their lineups because we have 4 teams on a bye week this week yet again. So let's get to this one. All right, Adam Rank. Randy wants to know, is it time to leave Cooper Kupp on the bench? He's going up against the Chicago Bears on Sunday. What do you think?
Well, the matchup's not great. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. The Bears have shut down opposing wide receivers this season. Of course, DJ Moore did a little bit of damage last week, but ultimately, you want to avoid the wide receivers against the Bears. And the one thing about Cooper Kupp is he was bad last week, but he dropped for sure 1 touchdown, potentially a second one that could have really changed the outcome of his game. So I know that this question, it's kind of philosophical because, and here comes the drop touchdown. Like Cooper Kupp he never misses that ball. Like this is a touchdown right here. Like I'm watching it. That's a touchdown. Like I was already celebrating. But the thing is, I'm not sitting Cooper Kupp though for Laviska Shenault or John Ross or anything like that. Be reasonable. And as always, check the NFL.com fantasy rankings before you make any decision. So I think philosophically, going up against the Bears, yes, you want to look at other options. Just make sure they're good options.
All right, I love it. Cooper Kupp burned me last week. I had him in because I thought it was a really good matchup and then didn't work out so well again, like you said, some drop passes, but whatever.
Hold on. Again, Kimmi, he was open for 2 touchdowns. This is where the people come back at us and like, hey, thanks for telling me to start Cooper Kupp. You're like, bro, I'm not the one in the end zone dropping that touchdown. Don't add him, but like, that's who you're mad at, not me. I'm sorry. Like, I would have looked like a lunatic if I was on this show last week being like, you know what? I think that Kupp's going to miss one. He's going to drop one in the end zone and he's going to beat 2 guys deep and then turn his shoulders the wrong way and miss another. You would think I'm an idiot. And then Sunday would happen and then you would never give me credit. Anyways, we're moving on.
Anyway, Cooper Kupp. You heard what Adam Rank had to say. All right, so Renetto, I always want to say their name because I want to like give them the proper shout out. All right, they tweeted at Michael F. Florio, but I'm going to take this question. Florio is going to come into the show after the break. All right, wants to know, Stafford or Tannehill for week 7? All right, Matt Stafford's going up against the Atlanta Falcons. That's a really favorable matchup because they have allowed 300 plus passing yards in every single game this season. Ryan Tannehill is taking on the Steelers, which on paper looks like a tougher matchup, but I'm going to swing with Tannehill on this one. I know that both of these guys should be started this week, but if you had to choose between the two, I'm going to rock with Tannehill because though the Steelers defense is good, they have allowed 4 quarterbacks on top 17 fantasy points in each and every game. 7 fantasy points is not crazy. That's not going to clinch you a win, but it's also not bad. Tannehill has been striking the iron while it's hot these last few weeks, so I'm going to rock with Tanny on this one. What do you think about that, Ray? Is that crazy to say?
You know what? I agree with the spirit of it because I don't believe that that's going to be a low-scoring game. I think that even though you see the Steelers' defense and you want to avoid it, this is one of those situations that I believe that they're going to score a lot of points. This could be a 34-30 type of game. It wouldn't surprise me. And I like Stafford this week. I don't think that he's a bad option, but it's like anytime somebody recommends that you watch this show, like go stream this show on Amazon Prime and go check it out. And they build it up so much that it just never lives up to expectations. And I think that Stafford always lets us down that way. Although I will say the Falcons have allowed the most fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. They've allowed every quarterback that they've faced to score 20 fantasy points. Well, not you, Mitch Trubisky, but the Bears quarterbacks combined scored 28. So the quarterback position has scored at least 20 fantasy points in every game against the Falcons. That's not helping you. And I just got to say that in situations like this, follow your heart, follow your guts, because both of them are great options.
All right, both great options. Let's do one more social question before it's time to get to a break. All right, Angel wants to know, Adam Rank, Mr. Rank. He calls you Mr. Rank. Don't ever call him that. Adam Rank's a nerd. You don't need to call him that. No. All right, anyway, Adam Rank, do you think I should drop Hollywood Brown for Brandon Cooks in a full point PPR league?
Wow, if Hollywood Brown is the worst player on your team, I say congratulations. You've done a really nice job of constructing a roster. I really like Brandon Cooks this week, and I know they're running the B-roll of Hollywood Brown there, so I'll talk about him. There just doesn't seem to be enough opportunity. There's something's missing, because like last year, for as great as Lamar Jackson was running the football, and everybody remembers that, he led the NFL in passing touchdowns, and it's just kind of not transferring over as much, or just the perception of it as much this season. And so I look at Brandon Cooks, who's been playing really well for the Houston Texans, and they're going to be in a game where I expect them to be losing throughout this entire contest. Jair Alexander is a shutdown cornerback who is going to be on Will Fuller this week. So I'm apprehensive about Will Fuller, but I'm absolutely bullish on Brandon Cooks. So for at least this week, I'd rather be going with Brandon Cooks.
All right, I love it. Brandon Cooks, another guy who I'm looking to get into my starting lineup this week. But speaking of starting lineups, Adam Rank, it is time for Rising Up the Ranks, where you're going to talk about some players who are on the rise and should absolutely be must-starts if you have them on your fantasy roster. I know you have two names, so hit me with who you got and why we need to start them this week.
Well, I'm going to go super lazy, and I'm going to go from the same game, but I'm going to start with Los Angeles Chargers running back Justin Jackson, because I know a couple of weeks ago, everybody was extremely bullish on Joshua Kelly, as they should have been, because I remember him at college at UCLA, and he was a great running back. Thought he was really going to come over and translate to the NFL level, but it just hasn't quite happened. He had a couple of opportunities against the Carolina Panthers, didn't make it happen. And then he had that crucial fumble against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a couple of weeks ago that opened the door for Justin Jackson to see more work. And what we're seeing now is that Justin Jackson is getting the majority of the snaps, the touches, and everything like that. This is a plus matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You want to start Justin Jackson this week. I have him as an RB2. And if I go to the other side of the football, let's talk a little bit about Keelan Cole, because when the season first started, it looked like the Jacksonville Jaguars were going to have one of those offenses that were going to be a lot of fun to watch. They were going to be in a lot of shootouts, and we were going to get a lot of production from Gardner, and DJ Chark was the guy that we anticipated. But lately, it's been Keelan Cole who has been the most consistent receiver in this offense. So again, this looks like another great matchup. The Chargers have allowed, the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers this season. So I look at this matchup as one, because what you want to do is when you're playing somebody, and if you think the Chargers are going to play well, you want to have at least one other guy going the other way. And as much as I would like it to be DJ Chark, Keelan Cole has proven to be the most consistent. So I'm going to go with him.
This Jaguars offense has been so fun to watch all season long, because it's kind of some of these guys who were no-name guys, or guys who weren't really on our radar, like Keelan Cole, like James Robinson, and others. So it's always fun to kind of root and watch Jacksonville Jaguars play, because I know you're also a big Duval guy. But it's time for a break. Coming up, it's time for all of you guys to get all on board, because the train is leaving the station, and Michael F. Fantasy Florio's got 3 guys he's hyping up for big-time fantasy points this week. Also, we're going to chat. Is it time to think about trading Ezekiel Elliott? Stay tuned to see our answer.
Time right now to take a look a little bit deeper. So we're going to bring in the guy who likes to write about the sleepers. He's a guy who's slick, who looks great in floral, but if he's too good at this segment, well, then we're going to have to quarrel. Show me Michael F. Florio, and of course, Kimmi Chex.
That was the greatest introduction ever. That was amazing.
I don't know why have you never created a rhyme?
I get this a lot. People are like, are you doing this on the fly? I decided 30 seconds before we came back from break. I'm like, I should rhyme him in. And so if that was terrible, I apologize. But Michael F. Florio, welcome to Fantasy Bites once again.
That was awesome, Rank. That was really well done and very short time to come up with it. And it's awesome to be here with the conductor of the hype train.
The conductor of the hype train. I just want to say I love you, Florio. I am so jealous, Rank. You have never created a rhyme for me or introed me like that. So we're going to take this offline because I think we're officially beefing. But I don't want to focus on the negative. I want to focus on the hype train. That is why we are bringing you in, Michael F. Fantasy Florio. You have some players who you think are going to have huge fantasy weeks. That's why you have them on the hype train. Now, this first guy that I'm going to tee you up on, you talked about him last week. I took note of that. I got him in my starting lineup, and then he went and balled out. But you think it wasn't just a one-time thing. You think he's going to do it again. Tell the people who exactly that is.
Yeah, I think Deandre Swift can live up to the hype that he set last week. I know he exploded. He finished as the RB3 last week, and I'm expecting big things again this week. I have him ranked as my RB23 in a good matchup against the Falcons, who have allowed 22 or more fantasy points to a running back in 4 of 6 games this year. And they've allowed the 3rd most catches to running backs this year. And that is important because Swift leads the Lions running backs with 4 targets per game. He had 27 fantasy points last week. This is a Lions team that is building towards the future. I'm expecting them to continue to give Swift work, and I think he is someone that you can get in your starting lineup with confidence this week.
Are we worried about Adrian Peterson, though? Is it, I know it was kind of a split last week, and they did give Adrian Peterson a touchdown. But what about moving forward? Do you think that this eventually goes into a situation where it's predominantly just Deandre Swift?
Yeah, I think you do have to worry about AP. I don't think he's fully going away just yet, but I do think as Swift continues to play well, he's already in 3 of the 5 games finished as their top fantasy scoring running back. So he already has the passing game on lock as well. I think as he continues to show well in the running game, he can get more and more work.
Okay, Deandre Swift. I was going to do a choo-choo, but then I realized that was really corny, so I'm just going to shake that one off and get to your second guy. This guy plays for the Arizona Cardinals, and it's not DeAndre Hopkins or Kyler Murray. Who are you hype about on this team?
I think this week is another week to get excited for Christian Kirk going up against the Seahawks. They have allowed the most fantasy points per game to wide receivers so far this season. They've allowed the most receiving yards to the position, and it's not even close. And we saw last week Christian Kirk really exploded with the 23 fantasy points, but I think it's a good sign for him that he's trending in the right direction. His fantasy points have increased in every single game, and this is a game where I think the Cardinals are not going to be playing with a multiple touchdown lead throughout. I think they're going to have to throw the ball more because Seattle has a good run D, but a pretty weak secondary.
Yeah, my boy, I don't know if you can hear Wedge Antilles Rank sitting there crying because he has shares of DeAndre Hopkins. Is that going to hurt him, or is it not that big of a deal?
D-Hop is also my wide receiver 1 this week, so I like both of these guys in the matchup. I think there's going to be a lot of throwing the ball from Kyler Murray this week because he can usually run really well, but I think this week, keeping up with Russell Wilson, he'll have to throw a good amount.
Okay, calm down, boy. You're fine.
All right, Florio, it's time for your last guy who's on your hype train this week. It's T. Higgins. Why exactly is he in that hype train spot, and what should fantasy managers do if they have him on their roster?
I think if you have T. Higgins, you should be super pumped right now. I would be using him again this week going up against a Browns defense that has allowed the 3rd most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. And he's really ascending as this team's number 1 wide receiver, it looks like. Since week 3, he's been averaging over 8 targets per game, over 75 yards. He has 15.7 fantasy points per game in that span that leads the Bengals. You could pick a stat since week 3, and there's a good chance that he leads this team's wide receivers in it. So he's just really been trending up. He has a really strong matchup. I'm expecting a lot of opportunity to go his way this week.
Yeah, I really liked him coming out of college too. Thought this was a great pick. I thought this was a better pick than Jalen Reagor. And I think about the Eagles not taking Justin Jefferson or T. Higgins, but whatever. For right now, it looks like a bad pick. But I guess what I'm really concerned about right now, though, is Tyler Boyd. Because last week they targeted AJ Green an awful lot. What should you do if you have Tyler Boyd?
I have Right now I have Higgins ranked ahead of Boyd, but I do have Boyd still in it's close. He's still like a wide receiver 2. The one I'm most worried about is AJ Green. I know he had a lot of volume last week, but before that, he was really looking like he was fading in that offense. But hopefully they just continue to let Joe Burrow sling it, and both of these guys can remain fantasy relevant.
All right, Florio, I completely agree with you on that T. Higgins pick. Love him and the matchup this week, so I'm going to try to get him in my lineup in the few leagues that I have shares of him in. But it's time to get to some fan questions. As a reminder, if you ever have them, tweet at us, let us know. We will try to answer them. But while you're here, Florio, before you leave, I'm going to start with you because Fantasy Football Fool, what a name. I love that. That's a good one. All right, they tweeted it right at you. They said, should I trade Ezekiel Elliott? Michael Florio, kick it off. What do you think about that?
No. I think you would be a fantasy football fool to trade him away. He is the RB2 in total points right now, the RB6 in points per game, and I know he had the 2 fumbles last week and everyone's kind of harping on the negative, but he had 11 targets from Andy Dalton. That is big time volume. I think they're going to continue to ride him, especially with no Dak, because they're not going to ask Dalton to throw as much as they did Dak. So continue just to have Ezekiel Elliott and reap the benefits.
Yeah, it is really tough to answer these questions in a vacuum as well, because we don't know what you're getting for Ezekiel Elliott. Like, I'm not taking Darrell Henderson for Ezekiel Elliott, but if somebody actually has like a compelling situation where they're giving you, I don't even know what would even be comparable. Like, I'm really trying to think of the scenarios. Like, it would have to be a heavy 2-for-1 where somebody was giving you Josh Jacobs and Julio or something crazy like that. But I think for most people, you're not going to be able to get the value in return for him. And like you said, the targets out of the backfield, not the fumbles, should be the things that you remember from Monday night.
All right, you heard that. Fantasy Fool, do not go trading Ezekiel Elliott. All right, let's get to another fan question. Alberto wants to know, and again, Florio, I'm going to start with you. Justin Herbert or Big Ben for the rest of the season? Who is your favorite star?
I'm going with the rookie here. Both of these quarterbacks have had their buys, so you don't have to ever worry about taking them out of your lineup again. And Herbert is averaging nearly 22 fantasy points per game this year. That is Big Ben's high on this season. He's averaging almost 300 yards per game. And the Jaguars this week are a really strong matchup. I like him this week, and I just like him going forward as well. I'm really excited for the rookie.
I'm worried about him coming off of his bye week because he was on such a hot streak, and it's like, you never want to break up the hot streak. It's like when you're crushing people on Mario Kart and everybody wants to take a break and you're like, no, I want to keep playing. Like, I don't want to walk away. Then you feel like you lose a little bit of mojo. But I think this week, the matchup against the Jags is so good that I think that should alleviate any fears. And I'm with you. I've got him in some spots where he's my quarterback for the rest of the season. I picked him up as a replacement for Aaron Rodgers in a couple of spots, and I kind of would like to get rid of A-Rod just because I would rather not have him on my team. But I love this guy, and I think that he's going to be great for the rest of the season.
All right, Justin Herbert, the rookie's out here doing big things. He's on a hot streak, but as Adam Rank said, he's coming off of a bye week, but I have no fear he's going to go out and do it again. So if you're looking for Big Ben or Justin Herbert for the rest of the season, we're unanimous and thinking that it is going to be Justin Herbert. Michael F. Fantasy Florio, thank you so much for joining us, as always, every single Thursday here on Fantasy Bites. If you love all the things that Florio has to say, which you have to because he's the best of the best, go to NFL.com/Florio to check out his Week 7 sleeper list, as well as those rankings that he was talking about. If you want to look at the rankings that Florio puts out every single week, go to NFL.com/rankings to help set your lineup. But it's time for a break, but I promise it's worth it because when we come back, we are going to talk about this game that's happening tonight. It's the Giants versus the Eagles, but we're also talking about Club Dub, our players of the week, the guys that we are going to guarantee are going to lead you to victory. All right, stick with us. This is NFL Fantasy Bites. Last election, millions of voters were unable to cast their ballots. Why? They didn't have a game plan, but you should have one. So join the NFL family by making your game plan today and making your voice heard this November. Visit NFL.com/votes to learn more. All right, welcome back to NFL Fantasy Bites. As you just heard, it's voting season, so make sure you go out there, you cast your ballot. I got a fun NFL votes pin. The league, we're fired up about voting. Make sure your voice is heard in your local community. But speaking of voices being heard, we are loud, we are proud. It is time for our Club Dub Players of the Week. These are the guys we guarantee are going to score at least 25 fantasy points and have your fantasy lineup raging. Adam Rank, hit me with your Club Dub Player of the Week.
Oh, wait, Aaron Rodgers just walked in. I'm leaving. I don't want to be at this place anymore. This party sucks. No, I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers. I just mentioned a moment ago that I have him in a number of different teams. He cost me. I am no longer undefeated in my league of record. Because if Aaron Rodgers had just gone out and had a game where he wasn't throwing pick sixes, I would have been just fine. But that's okay. This week against the Houston Texans, he is going to destroy that club. And I know sometimes we make too much out of this guy's upset, he's ready to go. But this is the one player where this absolutely pertains to. Listen, I'm a Bears fan. I know all too well about this. This player is petty. He does not take slights well. And he's going to go out there and destroy that Texans defense. All you need to know about the Texans defense is Deshaun Watson's reaction to losing the coin flip in overtime, because he knew his defense was not going to stop Ryan Tannehill and that Titans offense. I honestly believe Aaron Rodgers is going to score 50 points in this game. It's going to be ridiculous. And if not, then Aaron Jones is going to do it. So one of those two guys, you got to have the Aaron connection this week. If you play DFS or anything like that, stack the Packers, do everything you got to do to get them into your lineup. And I hate saying it, but I'm doing it for you. This is what I do for you. I don't think I want to be here talking about Aaron Rodgers. I don't, but I'm here for you, and I will do that because I'm a good person. Well, not really, but I'm okay.
I was just gonna ask, are you okay? How's your head? Here you are hyping up Aaron Rodgers as you wear a Chicago Bears shirt, and then right over your shoulder you have all of your other Chicago Bears stuff. I just want to make sure you're okay. Blink twice.
I'm not.
If Aaron Rodgers is making you say this.
I'm gonna go watch San Andreas again to go make myself feel better.
All right. Aaron Rodgers, your Club Dub Player of the Week, but it's time to get to mine. And by no surprise, I'm going to talk about a Kansas City Chief because he is absolutely going to go out and ball out in this fun divisional matchup against the Denver Broncos. I'm not talking about Travis Kelsey. I'm not talking about Patrick Mahomes. You see it right there. I'm talking about Tyreek Hill, and I guarantee he is going to, one, get in the end zone. Not once, but twice, maybe 3 times if I'm going to be crazy. But he is absolutely going to have more than 25 fantasy points this week because he's had a receiving touchdown in 5 of 6 games this season. And if you look at what he did against the Denver Broncos in 2019, I think he's going to replicate those numbers and then some. And the 2 games that he played against the Broncos last season, he averaged over 20 fantasy points per game, and he's had 3 touchdowns in those 2 games versus Denver in 2019. You were talking, Adam Rank, about getting the stack of Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers. One of my favorite stacks of this week is actually Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. This Broncos D, they're banged up. The entire team is banged up, to be quite honest. And Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and the Chiefs, they're on a hot streak. Yes, they had that unfortunate loss to the Las Vegas Raiders, but they're back. And in these divisional games, that's really when you see them turn up the heat and want to get a little bit more fired up. So Tyreek Hill, continue to ball out. You are the cheetah for a reason. Go expose that defense and win me a fantasy game. All right, it's time to talk about the game tonight. The Giants versus the Eagles. But before we do that, we're going to talk about a new segment, Home Field Advantage, presented by Brotherly Grub. We're helping promote local Black-owned businesses around the nation. So as we dive into the details of this game tonight, if you're in the Philadelphia area, be sure to go check out Brotherly Grub. You can get some food. I'm sure they probably got Philly cheesesteaks and all that good stuff. So go check out Brotherly Grub. Support local Black-owned businesses as you watch some TNF football. A reminder, that game kicks off tonight at 8:20 Eastern on the NFL Network, on Fox, and on Amazon. But also, you guys, a fun little note about how to watch the games. If you go and you download the NFL Fantasy app for free, Once you have the app downloaded, there's a little button at the top that has a little TV screen. If you click on that, you can watch the game for free inside the app. So I know I'm just hyping up the NFL Network and Fox and Amazon, but I also get to give props to our app that we all play fantasy football on, because you can watch games for free. So that's just a little insider tip for you. But let's start to actually talk about this game, because this is what the people are here to talk about. Adam Rank, do you trust Carson Wentz tonight against the Giants?
Well, since you just mentioned the NFL fantasy app, while we were talking, there it is. Oh, wait, can you see it? Oh, no, you
Move
can't
it
see
over.
it. There it is. Carson Wentz, baby. He's in my lineup. Right
What?
there, ready to go. I put him in. I absolutely trust Carson Wentz. By the way, I don't know if you notice that thing. I pay $1 a month, and all my inactives get swapped in and out. It's a cool feature on the NFL fantasy app. You got to check it out. But we're talking about Carson Wentz. Love him in this matchup. He's really been a good fantasy quarterback. I think all the griping from Eagles fans leads you to believe that he hasn't been playing well this season, but he is one of the top quarterbacks in fantasy. People overlook the fact that he has 4 rushing touchdowns this season. Now he's got a plus matchup against the New York Giants. On my team, I was struggling with trying to figure out who to start each week with Tom Brady and Jared Goff. And this time around, I'm like, you know what? The heck with both of them. I'm going to start Carson Wentz. I'm going to have a lot of fun on a Thursday night. I'm going to enjoy watching this contest. I'm going to watch Carson Wentz go out there and put up 22 points, and I'm going to have a good time. So I have all the confidence in the world in Carson Wentz this week.
Okay, I wasn't completely sold on Carson Wentz before, but I think you've sold me. So if I was in a situation where I needed to start him or not, I am absolutely going to start him tonight against the Giants. But I got another question. Boston Scott or Devonta Freeman? Who's going to score more points?
This is a tough one for me because I have them very similar rankings. And to me, Devonta Freeman has been getting better as he gets growing into this offense. Remember, he was pulled off the street. He wasn't a member of the Giants when the season started. He was brought in as a necessity when Saquon Barkley went down. So I kind of trust him a little bit more. I think I have him with a slight lean on this one. Boston Scott has looked fantastic when he's been given his opportunities. I know that earlier this year when Miles Sanders went out, a lot of people rushed to the waiver wire, put Boston Scott in their lineup, and it didn't quite pan out. But I think both of these guys, I'm sure you're not deciding between both of these players. But I would give the slight edge to Freeman, but I think Boston Scott should also be very good for you. Both of them, to me, are flex plays at worst. You know, we're missing out on we don't have Myles Gaskin this week. We don't have the Colts running backs. We don't have the Vikings running backs. So you probably have an opportunity to get one of these guys in your lineup. I think both of them are good starts.
Okay, so that was this helps no one. It's like either of them. They're great. Yes to all of them.
I would tell you if somebody was a bad start. Neither one of them are bad starts. That's the one thing I've got. I'm sorry. Like, I wish there was something I could tell you. And I would start Devonta Freeman, though. That's who I would pick if I had to pick between one of the two.
All right, fine. You finally made a choice. Let's get another question in here. Travis Fulghum or Darius Slayton? Again, who has more fantasy points?
I'm going to say it's going to be Travis Fulghum. He's going to be the one who scores the most points. He's really been consistent over the last 3 weeks. He's really started to establish himself as a number 1 wide receiver. And perhaps the Philadelphia front office can now, pretend like this was the guy they drafted in the first round this season, so it doesn't make them feel as bad about Jalen Reagor. But I like Fulghum. I think they're going to throw the ball enough to make him a viable option this week. I think that if you picked him up off the waiver wire over the last couple of weeks, kudos to you. And again, we've missed a lot of big-time receivers. Adam Thielen's out. Justin Jefferson's out. We don't have Devontae Parker, so there's probably an opportunity to sneak him into your lineup. And Darius Slayton has been good. The one problem with this Giants offense is that we figured they weren't going to be a very good football team, but we thought the offense would be productive. We haven't quite seen that yet. Slayton's been good. Like, he's not horrible, but tonight he's got Darius Slay, which I know is super confusing. I don't like that matchup, so I'm going to be looking at other spots. So I'm probably going to avoid Darius Slayton across the board. Even though Darius Slay hasn't been quite as prolific as I think the Eagles would have liked when they made the move to acquire him, but I still think enough that we're not going to start him this week.
Completely agree. I'm going to swing with Fulghum on this one. It's funny, when we were asking this question and teeing it up, part of me wanted to be shady and say, who's going to have more points, Travis Fulghum or all of the Giants wide receiver core combined? But I digressed on that one and just decided to do Darius Slayton. I have one more thing to note, because we have a very loyal fan who watches the show each and every week. His name is Wheels, with a Z. I only know him by his Twitter name.
Wheels.
He was DMing me this morning. He has tons of questions about tonight's game. So I want to get this one answered for you, Wills, because we love our loyal followers and our watchers of our program. He wants to know, tonight, do I put Boston Scott or Travis Fulghum in the flex spot? Which one?
Ooh, that's a tough one. You know what? If it's a PPR league, I would definitely lean towards the wide receiver, because I feel like his production has been more consistent. But that's where I'm going to go. Yeah, I don't really have – if it's a standard league or a half-point PPR, then I always favor the running back. I think Boston Scott will be productive enough to go out there and make you feel good, get to double digits, and make you feel pretty good about starting him. So you don't have to look at a bagel or something terrible over the weekend as you're like, why did I start this guy? But Fulghum, PPR, Boston Scott, and the other ones.
All right, that was Home Field Advantage presented by Brotherly Grub. Reminder, if you're in the Philadelphia area, go to Brotherly Grub. Go get some yummy grub as you watch this game tonight. The Eagles versus the Giants on NFL Network, in the NFL Fantasy app, on Fox, or on Amazon Prime. That's going to do it for us today on NFL Fantasy Bites, but this isn't all you have to see of us all week long, because on Sunday we have another show. It's called NFL Fantasy Game Day. It's myself, Adam Rank, Marcus Grant, and Michael F. Fantasy Florio. We are answering all of your last-minute questions about your lineups and what to do for that Sunday slate of games. So make sure you tune in and you watch. How to watch? I'll tell you. Go to the NFL.com, go to the NFL Fantasy app, or go to youtube.com/NFL, and you can watch our show and make sure that we lead you to fantasy gold. I'm Kimmi Chex, that dude right there, and the hat is Adam Rank. This was Fantasy Bites. Thanks so much for tuning in.